Eyjafjallajökull. This is a volcano that erupted in 2010. It cost the airline industry an estimated 1.3 billion euros in losses. Eyjafjallajökull is also what taught me that Icelandic words can be broken down. My first trip to Iceland was back in 2011. I was 21 at the time, and I had never traveled anywhere on my own before. And clearly, I fell in love with the place because today I'm here for the 10th time in 9 years. And I know, that sounds a little bit obsessive, and it's true. But it's been a very productive obsession because over the course of my travels, I have knit a lopapeysa from scratch, written a column for a local newspaper in Reykjavik, published an illustrated book about Iceland, and worked on a sheep farm during lambing season where I had the pleasure of witnessing both the miracle and horrors of a live birth for the first time in my life. It's some life-changing stuff. I made the decision to start learning Icelandic when it became obvious that Iceland was becoming much more than just another vacation destination. I wanted to make an investment and get to know the country for its culture, for its history, and for its language. When you're learning a new language, a natural part of that process is to learn short, simple words first, so that when you run into a longer, more complicated word, you can try to look for those easy words that you already know. So something like Eyjafjallajökull, which for someone who does not live in Iceland looks a little scary, can be broken down into 3 smaller, slightly friendlier words. Eyja for island, fjalla for mountain, and jökull for glacier. When you break it down like that, Eyjafjallajökull just kind of rolls off the tongue. This process of breaking down words is something that's unique to when you're learning a new language, because if you're already a fluent speaker, you don't necessarily have to spend time asking why words are the way they are in order to understand their meaning. So when I tell Icelanders about my process for deconstructing Icelandic words, the most common response I get is, "Oh, I've never thought about it that way." And I'm the exact same way with English, which is my primary language. I've never once questioned why we call pajamas pajamas when we could use something a little more straightforward, like the Icelandic word náttföt, which literally translates to night clothes. Every time I came across an interesting word in my studies, I would draw them as icons. Words like brúðkaup for wedding, which literally means bride by, and ásfangin for being in love, which literally translates to love captive. It's kind of romantic, isn't it? Expressing these words as images was important to me because I'm a visual learner, and also because when you're learning a new language, you're much more likely to remember words if you associate them with an image rather than a written dictionary definition. For example, if I'm looking for the word for customer in Icelandic, viðskiptavinir, literally business friends, I think of 2 business people who are the very best of friends. This visualization exercise can get a little silly at times, I'll admit, like in the case of niðurgangur. This is the Icelandic word for diarrhea. It literally translates to downstairs walking. And I know for some people that might be a little too grotesque and a little too graphic to imagine in their heads, but trust me, I am never going to forget the word niðurgangur. Images aren't just powerful tools for learning, but they're also great when it comes to sharing and spreading ideas. A study at MIT found that the human brain only requires 13 milliseconds to process an image, which is a heck of a lot faster than trying to read a word, especially if it's in a language that you don't speak. Images are also universal, so they can transcend language barriers. It doesn't matter what part of the world you're in, if you're looking to connect to Wi-Fi, you're going to look for this sign. I thought Icelandic was beautiful and poetic and just really, really cool, and I wanted to share that with the rest of the world, and that challenge became a lot easier for me because I had pictures. I have about 20,000 followers on my Instagram account, and in the grand scheme of social media, that's like nothing. But it's not so insignificant when you consider the fact that 20,000 is about 6% of Iceland's entire population. But most of my followers aren't actually from Iceland, and they don't speak Icelandic. But clearly, they're very interested in those topics. So I have a choice. I can present Icelandic words like this, just written out, simple letters. Þvottabjörn is the word for raccoon. It literally means washing bear. But for someone who doesn't speak Icelandic, this is just a jumble of letters, some of which don't even belong in the English alphabet. Alternatively, I can present Þvottabjörn like this, as a little bear is taking a little bubble bath because he wants to get squeaky clean. And I think that's just slightly more memorable. I didn't know this when I first started learning Icelandic, but turns out Icelandic is really hard. No one told me that. So I'm very realistic about my expectations for fluency. And though I've struggled with Icelandic grammar time and time again, studying it has actually helped me realize that I love languages. So last year, I decided to learn Dutch. It's a lot easier than Icelandic. And this year, I'm learning Spanish. But more than that, studying Icelandic and also studying about Iceland has helped me reconnect with a part of my identity that laid dormant for a really long time. I was born in Korea, raised in Canada and Australia before I finally settled in New York City as an adult. And all throughout that time, I'd kind of forgotten about my own background. I'd never really had to think about it before. And after spending all this time traveling across Iceland, reading Icelandic sagas, delivering Icelandic lambs, I found myself wondering why I wasn't on the same cultural inquisition for my Korean heritage. So naturally, I started drawing Korean as well. And in the same way that I'm sharing the beauty of the Icelandic language through images, my goal is to make Korean more fun and approachable through pictures. Since I'm a native speaker, I don't need to be breaking down words to understand what they mean, but I do remind myself to be just as curious as someone who might be learning Korean for the first time. Like noticing the difference between the word for fish that you keep as a pet and fish that you have at the dinner table. I'm also researching the origins of foods that I ate growing up, like kimchi, which is our national dish of fermented cabbage. And I'm also sharing more personal stories of my childhood growing up in an immigrant home. This project has taught me a lot about Korea and Korean history through the research that I've been doing, and it's also given me the opportunity to reflect on my personal history and tell my story. So even though, on paper, I have zero connections to Iceland, I am not from Iceland, I do not live in Iceland, I am not dating or married to somebody from Iceland, but somehow, in a roundabout way, this distant, cold, unrelated island has helped me form a deeper connection to myself, to my family, and to my country. So thank you, Iceland, for helping me find my way back home. Takk fyrir.